Hello, this is Derek with Chief Architect, and welcome to the quick tip video of the week. Today's focus is going to be creating a custom trellis, and we're going to be using a sample plan called our zero-sum kitchen to create our design. And if you go to the website at chiefarchitect.com, you can go to the User Center and down to the samples gallery. We have a number of different sample plans that you can download. So this is our zero-sum kitchen right here, and you can download the X5 plan. So you can download that plan and follow along with our quick tip. You can even download the trial version and open this plan and follow along if you'd like to. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we need to do is create this deck area here. So we have a deck area that we need to place this custom trellis over. So we're going to change our screen over into Chief Architect, and we're going to create that deck area right off the back of this sample plan that we're using. And the first thing I want to do is create a 3D view. So we're going to go into a perspective full overview so we can see what this plan looks like. And this is the sample plan that we're using. We're going to add the deck off the back side of this, so we'll rotate that around a little bit. And I'm going to split my view here by going up to the window drop down, and to tile vertically we can hit F6 on our keyboard to do that. Then we have a 3D and a 2D view at the same time, and we're going to zoom in a little bit to the deck area that we're going to be creating. And let's go up to our deck tool, and under our deck tools we have a few different options for creating our deck. A deck railing, a curved deck railing, a deck without a railing. That's the condition we're after, so we'll go ahead and select that one. I'm not going to be too careful about the dimensions here. I'm just going to get the basic shape of our deck laid out here. And once I do that, I can select our deck and put in some precise dimensions. So let's go ahead and change that over to, let's call it 11'6". And let's go ahead and dimension the width here. We'll even that up to, say, 28 feet. Okay, so you'll notice in 3D, once we've created this this deck room or area, we already have a deck that's created with all the specifications that we have set. And of course, if you want to change some of that, you can just double click on the deck area and go ahead and get into the deck tab and change some of the parameters there. There's lots of flexibility. Okay. So now that we have our deck area, I think we're ready to go ahead and get that trellis created. So I'm going to bring over an image just to remind us of what we're dealing with here. The trellis that we're after, we have these columns, and we have this beam, and our trellis members we have to make. So the first part of this is going to be to create these columns. Chief Architect comes with hundreds of different columns right in the library catalog of the software. But if you're after something custom, we're going to use some of our tools here to create these columns from scratch, and we'll show you just how to do that. So I'm going to go in, and the first thing to create that custom column is to create a slab. So I'm just going to create a slab, and we're going to get that bottom area. In our plan right here, I'm just going to draw out a little rectangular shape, and I'm going to click on it and dimension that. So we'll zoom in a little bit here. Let's make the that little slab area 24 inches. And then we'll go ahead and make this area here, let's call that perhaps 16 inches. So we have a rectangular slab, and you can see that in our 3D view here. And let's double click on it and get into a little bit more information. We want to make the thickness of that 20 inches. And we're going to make the elevation at the top also 20 inches so that that will rest right on top of our deck here. The elevation of that is 0. So we'll click OK. So that's raised up on our on top of our deck. Now that we have that selected and created, we need to make that capstone. So with that selected, I'm going to go down here at the bottom and click a copy and paste in place. So I get another exact replication of that, and it's pasted in place. And I'm going to grab the corner of this, and I'm going to hit the C keyboard and pull that out to make a concentric copy of that, or basically expanding the size of it concentrically. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to hit the tab key so that I get a coordinate and I can put in a precise measurement of what I want that to be. So I want to make that 1 inch bigger on both the X and Y positions. So I'll make that one there and one here and click OK. So now I have, if we select on that, a 1 inch bigger stone, and if we click on that larger piece, we want to open it up and change its parameters a little bit. So we'll open that up, and we're going to make the elevation at the top 26, and we'll make the thickness of it 6 inches so that that piece will rest right on top of our original. So we'll click OK. So now that copy is moved up and it has a 6-inch kind of slab capstone on there. I'm just going to change my view here so you can see that a little bit. And by the way, we have a number of different rendering views. If you're having trouble seeing something in a render view, a little bit hard to see the definition there, we can switch this over to a vector view, and that adds the lines and makes it the definition a little bit better. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is get our post on top. So let's open up our catalog, and once we have that open, I'm going to type in post and see if we can find the post that I'm after. We'll just scroll down our list here. As you can see, there's really hundreds and hundreds of different columns, posts, and such in here. And this brings up a good opportunity to explain that if you have some favorites that you want to do, you can organize your library in your user catalog. If we switch this over from doing a search over to our user catalog, underneath our user catalog we have all these folders that we've created, and I have a column that I like to use here, and if we click on that, we can add that right into our plan very quickly and easily. We'll just select that post, drop it into place, and of course if you want to center that, we can select it in our center objects and grab the center of that capstone or column base, and then with it selected again, center and center it both ways, so then you know that's precisely located in the middle. So we have our post created here, and it's looking pretty good, just about exactly what I'm after. And at this point what we want to do is start to replicate that post over and get that set into place. Before I start to replicate the column, I think I'd like to add some colors and materials on there. So on this base that we've created on our side here, we want to change our colors and materials. So the first thing I want to do is I want to change this capstone here to a black color. So I'm going to go up and grab my material eyedropper and pull up the color from our door and just click to add that onto that capstone. And then secondly, I want to add a nice brick texture on here. So in my favorites over here, I have a brick, and I'm going to go ahead and click on that and just paint that material on there so I have a nice brick. And now if we go into a render view, a standard render view, change that rendering technique, you can see that that material I put on there a little bit better. Okay, so let's go ahead and start to get this replicated, and I guess I'll show you quickly here before we move on. Now that we've created a nice column like this and you want to save that, perhaps that's something you'll use in the future, you can highlight or group select that entire object by doing a marquee around it, and we can block it together so that it becomes one piece, and of course we can explode it to get access to the individual parts as well. And once it's blocked together, we'll click the Add to Library button, and that will add that entire component into our library. We can select on it and change it to custom post, and then it's permanently saved right into your library as a custom post. Okay, so Let's go ahead and close our library down, and we're going to replicate this. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Now we'd like to locate this post right here over our existing footings that are down in this area. So I'm going to use a tool called a reference display, and that's going to show where our what the things that are on the lower level. You can of course toggle showing things on the lower upper level, and it shows those things in red. And now I can just grab that and pull this over and snap that right into the corner. That's just about where I want that. And then once that's put into place, we'll do a copy and reflect that right about the center. So there's another copy on that side. And then with that one selected, let's just go ahead and copy and paste it in place. And we'll grab that and pull that and snap that right onto our other footing area. Okay. So now in our 3D view, of course, we can zoom out a little bit and we see that we have those columns put into place. Okay, so let's revisit our image here real quick. Now we have our post put into place, and now the next thing we're ready to do is get into our creating this beam and creating these trellis members, and we have a nice profile on here that we want to show you how to do. So let's go ahead and get into that next. We're going to go up to our CAD menu and select our CAD detail management. And you can create a new one. This plan happens to have a trellis detail already on here. So I'm going to just double click on that to open up that trellis detail. And this is where I'm going to create our trellis members. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the box tool for CAD, this simple rectangular polyline, and I'm going to draw out a CAD object, and we're going to dimension that. Let's call it 32 feet, and let's dimension the height of it here. Let's just call that perhaps 12 inches, just to make it simple. Okay. And what we want to do is find an edge profile here, or an end profile here that's going to match what we're after. So we're going to open up our library again, and we're going to just type a search in here for profile. And we'll scroll down here. Again, there's hundreds of different profiles to choose from. Chief Architect has generic ones in the list. You can also go to manufacturers that we have available, and then you can create your own profiles using CAD details and really come up with any type of molding or profile that you'd like to. So this looks like a good profile. I'll go ahead and select that one, and I'm going to right click and have it show in browser. So this is that profile in our actual library catalog browser. I'm going to right click on it again and place that molding profile, and then I'll just simply click to put it into our plan. So it's a smaller version of the size isn't quite matching up, so that's not a problem. We can change that. I'm going to select that molding profile, and we're going to close that polyline because that edge over here wasn't closed, it just had an open profile end. And I'm going to grab that, select it, and do a point-to-point move so that we can easily and accurately move that over to that corner. Okay, and we'll zoom in a little bit further, and I'm going to grab that edge right here, and we're just going to pull that right down and snap that right into place. So that looks exactly what I was after. So we have that profile put there, and if we zoom out a little bit, we can grab this edge and do a copy and reflect it about the center of this member, and then we have that put onto our other side here. Okay. Now this is going to take care of the beam that we're after, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight and make a marquee around this entire beam that we've created, and I'm going to copy it and paste it in place, and I'm just going to pull down the replication of that. And for our trellis members, we're going to select on the end of that and delete one of those. And let's go ahead and perhaps we'll resize that overall. Let's maybe make it 10 feet. Okay. And now that I have our trellis members done, we'd like to combine these pieces so that they become one item. So if we highlight the entire object, and at the bottom we have an option to do a polyline union, and if we click on it, we get the option to delete the original. We don't care about the original anymore. And what that does is essentially it combines the two polylines, so you can see the line has disappeared. So we'll do that as well for this top piece, and we'll make that polyline union, and we'll delete that original. Okay, so now we have our trellis members put into place. Perhaps the height of this trellis here, we'd want to change that overall height. So let's go ahead and change that to 6 inches. So we want it a little bit smaller, and we can grab that molding profile here and just simply drag that down and match that over. Okay. So we have these all created, and we're ready to get these placed into our plan. All we have to do to get these over is really just create a marquee, and we're going to select both of those items, and we're simply going to copy them. And we'll go ahead and minimize this view, and we're going to get into our plan view, maximize that. And we want to create an elevation so we can see where these trellis members are going to go. So I'm going to do a back elevation here. I'm just going to draw an elevation. And I'm going to copy those. So let's go to edit, or paste those. Just simply do a paste. And I'm going to paste those over into the side here. So now we have those trellis members put over in the side. And now at the moment, these are just simply CAD lines. So we need to convert these items that we have in our plan into a solid. So let's go ahead and select both of those, and we're going to change or convert the polyline into a polyline solid. Really easy to do. And let's go ahead and change the thickness to them both. At this point, we'll make them 6 inches. Click OK. And this one we're actually going to change over. Instead of 6 inches, let's make it 3 inches. That's slightly smaller. And we'll click OK there as well. So now we have our trellis members all set and ready to go. Now I'd like to put this trellis and tuck it right underneath the overhang of our plan here. So right between the this overhang, the bottom of our fascia board, we're probably going to have to adjust the height of our columns here to fit our beam in the thickness of our trellis member as well. So what I'm going to do is grab our trellis member, and I'm going to bring it down to this general area, and I'm just going to kind of snap that and tuck it right up underneath our fascia board. And then I'm going to grab our beam, and let's pull that down into place. And what we want to do is bump that right up against that trellis member so that we have the spacing we need. So at that point, it's pretty easy to grab our column and pull down our column. And I'll just need to explode that so that I can actually grab this individual column and pull the height of that down. So we want that just to match right up there. That looks good. And we'll come over and explode this one and select just that column. We'll match its height up right there. And finally the last one, and we'll pull that column down. So now we have our spacing exactly right. We have room at the top of our post for this beam. We have room for our trellis members, and all that's going to tuck up right underneath our overhang, and we can attach that right to our wall. Now we're done with this elevation view, so I'm going to go up top here, and we're going to just close down that elevation camera. And you'll notice that while we have our heights and elevation position right, our trellis beam is still set off here. So we need to simply just grab that, and we're going to drag that down and place that right over our columns. And then if we'd like to, we can center that on our deck. So with that selected, we can hit the center objects and grab our deck room and click so that that's centered across. And then our trellis member, we're going to need to rotate that around. So I'm just going to grab that and rotate it this way. And then we'll bring it over into place, and we'll put our first trellis member down. And recall, we're going to tuck that underneath the overhang, so that's going to go right up to our wall. So I'll just snap that down, and we'll slide it over slightly. And now we're ready to replicate this across. So let's bring up our 3D view that we had. I'm going to go into our perspective overview. And this is a pretty good time to change our color here. So we'll notice that our polyline solids can use a matching color to our columns. So I'll grab our eyedropper tool. We'll pull the color up off of our column and simply spray that onto our beam and trellis member. And I also notice in our 3D view here that our trellis member can probably use being a little bit longer there, since it's tucked up underneath our overhang. I'm going to do a tile of our view. So let's do a Shift F6. And I'm going to grab that trellis member, and let's extend the length of that a little bit. Let's zoom in just a bit. And so let's go ahead and grab the end of this and pull that out, and perhaps we'll make the overall length 12 feet. Okay. So now that we have our trellis member put there, we can replicate that across. So with this selected, we can do what's called a multiple copy. And if we click on that, we can set the interval for the multiple copy. Right now it's set at 36. Let's change that over to maybe 16 inches and click OK. So now when we grab this item and pull it over, we're going to get 16 inch on center copy going across. Okay. And then of course, if we want to, we can center all those right on the center of our deck area. So if we go up to our polyline tool, we can hold the Shift key down with that tool selected, and we'll grab a marquee around all of our trellis members. And when we do that, it only selects those trellis member polyline solids. And we can go down just like we centered before, hit the center key, and come up and center all those trellises right in the middle of our deck area. Okay. So our trellis here is pretty well complete. Let's go up here and expand our three-dimensional view, and perhaps we'll change over into a vector view so we can see our trellis members and the profiles a little bit better. The last thing I wanted to show for you is how we can again use architectural blocks to block something like this together and use it in the future. So let's just explore that very quickly. So let's hit Shift F6 and tile our views again. And what I'm going to do is zoom in a little bit, and we're going to select our deck railing wall. And you'll notice at the bottom we have an edit tool for object layer properties, and I want to turn off that layer so that it's not visible. So I'm just turning off the that wall layer and click OK so that it's not displayed in this view. And that gives me the opportunity to do a marquee selection around my entire deck trellis area. release the mouse, and once I have all those members and items selected, I can go down to the bottom and make it an architectural block, and then I can click this Add to Library button. So that entire deck trellis has now been added to the library. And we can change the name here from untitled to, let's call it a trellis. And now to illustrate what we've done is we're going to go ahead and select our deck members again, and let's go ahead and hit delete. So we've deleted all that hard work we've done, but quite easily we can just grab that trellis item, select that, and click it right into our plan, and then we can grab that entire object and put it right into place. Snap that right down into place. So very easy to replicate that and use that hard work in the future. So that wraps up our quick tip today. I want to thank you all for attending and watching. I want to remind you to be sure to visit our website at chiefarchitect.com. You'll find training videos, samples gallery to download examples like the plan we worked with today, how-to articles. You can look up article number 894 for a reference on how we created these ends, the profiles on the ends of our beam and trellis members. You can visit us at Chief Talk and use our user forum as well as our YouTube channel, and of course download a free trial version. Thanks again for watching our quick tip video.